A very good day to Madam Diana. First, I will introduce my team members. Myself, Tharshini Sivalingam, Tilageswary Gunasekaran, Thian Sze Sze Thinegapriya Theivehan, and Tey Aaron. We would like to present about Marginalist School. We are from Group 54. Thank you.
Introduction. The application of the differential calculus to measure problem of a rational economic choice is at the basis of marginalist economics. Since the early 19th century, Knut Wicksell's marginalist views have been put forward. In the years 1871 until 1877, a new wave of marginalists developed. It focused primarily on marginal utilities and a measure of the scarcity of formulated and exchange a theory defined by proportionality between a price and marginal utilities. Marginalist ideas and pertaining to production were still somewhat tentative and incomplete at the time. The term neological has become a terminological norm in recent years to describe a marginalist economics. Although neological economics and marginalists were originally synonyms, they are now usually treated as a separated concept in modern debates. Marginalist is a school of thought that focus on maximizing profit by employing marginal notion that are linked to specific change in the quantity of a service or item. Furthermore, the marginalist school favor classical economic laissez-faire policies.
Today, I am going to present what is the meaning of 5 major questions. First, what was the historical background of the school? The Marginalist school promote nationalism, give a new dignity and importance to the marginate, and justify a policy of economic and military expansion. Next, what were the major tenets of the school? Provide broad generalizations about the ideas of successive economic school. The strengths are enables a constant representation of the essence of the school, such as uniformity of ideas of group of economics. Besides of that, whom did the school benefit or seek to benefit? Try to identify the groups that support each school of thought and the group to which each school applied for support, either successfully or unsuccessfully. Furthermore, how was the school valid, useful, or correct in its time? The ideas irrelevant of society at the time they are presented tend to wither and die. Ideas that are useful in solving some problems are disseminated and popularized. For example, Kenya's ideas were given added inputs by the Great Depression of the 1930s. Lastly, which tenets of the school become lasting contributions? This section identified the ideas presented by a school that have been lasting significant and that can still be found in current economic textbooks. For example, Kenya's concepts such as the saving function, fiscal and monetary policy.
Historical background. The marginalist schools in an economic philosophy states that economic decision and behavior are decided increment rather than categorically. Marginalism key finding is that people make a decision based on specific units of economic goods rather than on an all or nothing basis. The marginalist school has been as founded of the fundamental principle of economic theory and research since its adoption in the 1870s, known as the marginal revolution. The marginalist school was developed independently by a group of economists of several nations. Since 1930, marginalist school has been modified, but it has not lost its utility. When the early marginalists believed that a laissez-faire would provide the best results, Richard theory was commented by the marginalist school, which failed to examine the other viewpoint.
Major tenets of the marginalist school. Marginalism is the idea people are making economic dissections about specific units or increments of units and is thought to represent the dividing line between classical and modern economics. Marginalism is used to describe the difference between total and marginal utility. Understanding marginalists can help business better understand how to price their product and also individuals decide whether or not to buy an additional unit of an item or service, depending on the additional utility they were obtained from it, according to the theory of marginalism. On the supply side of the market, the marginalists drew on the work of classical economics to evaluate the value of resource utilities in production in more depth. The supply side of the market is concerned with the product's actions and behavior. The marginal productivity theory in the 1890. Limited role of government. The marginalists continue the classical school support of the most desirable policy of limit government participations in the economy. No meddling with natural economics rule was necessary to achieve maximum societal advantage. When did the marginalists benefit or seek to benefit? The marginalists held refute the proletarians' machines' cry for revolutions by demonstrating that under competitive conditions, worker remunerations will be equal to their contribution to the values of the output. Employers benefit from these notions by opposing unions and attribute employment to unreasonably high salary, rigidity on the downside of both. Landowners were also defended by marginalism from accusations based on Ricardian rent theory. Mercantilism did, however, lead to the adoption of enormous trade restrictions which stunted the growth and freedom of colonial business. Advocates of laissez-faire agree that there was really no difference between domestic and foreign trades, and that all trades was beneficial both to the trader and to the public. Also maintained that the amount of money or threshold that a stand meets will be automatically adjusted and that money, like any other commodity, coexists in excess. Laissez-faire like mercantilism was challenged by other economic ideas.
Good morning. Today I would like to present about the fourth and the fifth major tenets of the marginalist school. The fourth major tenet of the marginalist school is: how was the marginalist school valid, useful, or correct in its time? The marginalist school pioneered the establishment of innovative as well as sophisticated analytical instruments, primarily geometric diagrams and mathematical procedures. Economics has become a much more precise social science as a consequence of these philosophers. Demand variables have been accorded their apparent prominence as a reliable indicator of pricing, including both final commodities as well as sources of manufacture. Unlike many classical economists, the marginalists directly articulated the vital assumptions that underpin economic research rather than leaving them shrouded in the background. This marginalist theoretical confidence culminated in a distinction between factual as well as provable rules based upon explicit assumptions or even principle due to advocated using the partial equilibrium analysis approach, which was effective for extracting from the intricacy of real life. These researchers have been able to scrutinize complex phenomena step by step using these procedures, which allow them to modify one factor at a time while clutching all those other parameters constant. As even the marginalists added additional factor, they were capable of creating increasingly plausible scenarios. Furthermore, while the economic cycle is critical towards the prosperity of a such huge vehicle firm. The economic cycle become less significant to the success of a convenience food shopkeeper than that of the launch of a competitor shop around the corner. Marginalism is perhaps a microeconomic methodology to economics that seem to have prominent role in economic philosophy. Bullianism was useful in the transition between the self-sufficient system of the Middle Age to the money and credit economy of modern times. Besides that, the fifth major tense of the marginalist school is which tense of the marginalist school became lasting contribution. In that case, most of the marginalist academy's ideas have seen criticised and some have been abandoned. This supposed structure, this conception as linked both marginalist as well as neoclassical labor philosophy based on the most recent gains. Unless a business slashes its salaries, this might enlarge its business by offering additional things for even less revenue. Even some areas of such business nowadays are characterized by pure competition. Institutionalist economics argued that historical but institutional force trump reasonable thinkers' confidence in influencing matters including big day duration, consumer behavior, even pay scales. Essentially, those intellectuals' evolution was unchanged, enduring, nor unsupported by irrefutable fact. Inferential proof of conception was rarely attempted and assumptions were frequently constructed in manners that prevented proof. Thank you.
Today, I'm going to present about one major figure from the Marginalist school and provide your argument on why the selected economics is interesting. First, one major figure from the Marginalist school is William Stanley Jevons at 1835 to 1882, and one of the greatest and most original of English economics was born in Liverpool. His father was an iron merchant and engineer who constructed one of the first iron boats and also wrote on economics, and his mother was a daughter of the historian William Ruskin. Besides that, at the age of 15, Jevons was sent as a boarder to the University College School at London. A year later, he entered University College. At 17, he wrote of wanting very much to get Bellevue, London Labour and London Poor, as that is the only book I know to learn a little about the real condition of the poor in London at 1886. Already he was imbued with a sense of mission. Working in complete independence of one another, Jevons in Manchester, England, Leon Walras in Lausanne, Switzerland, and Karl Menger in Vienna each school developed the theory of marginal utility to understand and explain the consumer behavior. The theory held the utility value of each additional unity of commodity and marginal utility is less and less to the consumer. This statement marked a significant depart from the classical theory of value, which stated the value derived from the labor used to produce a product or from the cost of production more generally. Began the neoclassical school, which is still the dominant one in economics today. Jevons went on to define the equation of exchange, which shows that for a consumer to be maximizing his or her utility, the ratio of the marginal utility of each item consumed its price must be equal. Jevons put much less thought into the production side of economics. It is ironic, therefore, that became famous in Britain for his book The Coal Question, in which he wrote the Britain industrial utility depend on coal and therefore will decline the resource was extorted. Jevons could have gone further by connecting his insight in pure exchange into a wider theory incorporating production, capital, money, and business cycle in more systematic and consumer manner. That's all from me. Thank you.
Today I would like to talk on the significance of marginalist school to economic thought and the conclusion for our whole group assignment. I found out that there were several benefits brought by this school. First of all, the development of marginalist theory helps to explain human nationality, human action, subjective valuation, and efficient market prices in a better view. It particularly explains what affects the consumers while making economic decisions. Usually, they are willing to pay more when they highly desire something, but refuse to pay for the same price once their first needs were satisfied. They tend to pay less for the second good or service after they consume the first one. They may think that the extra charges for the first product is fine as they want to fulfill their desire immediately at the moment. The second function of marginalism is that the difference between total utility and marginal utility is explained through it. It also explains how the value of goods and services act in the consumer's economic decision-making process for an extra unit. The value is decided by the universality of the product involved and the condition of the consumers. The harder to get, the more expensive the product will be, and of course, the consumers will more likely to pay more for an extra unit for it. However, if someone needs something that is common but essential based on its condition, such as something that has the power to decide his life at that time, he might be willing to pay for it, instead for another thing that are harder to get in the normal condition. Lastly, marginalist school helps the businesses to better understand how to price their products by understanding marginalism. Most of the businesses aim to get the maximum profit and strive for it. In this case, marginalist school provided help in the pricing process for them with a high accuracy. They need to plan well in this matter to ensure they are always clear about what a consumer will value when considering to continue purchase the same product or even buy it in the first place. Next is the conclusion part. Marginalist school is indeed an essential school of thought in the field of economic thought. It gained influence in economics because of its vast explanatory power in economic decisions and human behavior in general. That's all for me. Thank you.